Hello, everyone. My name is Alpha Tanger, and I have the opportunity today to share with you information concerning the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission final rule on employer wellness programs in Title I of ADA. Today, we will briefly discuss the framework of the EEOC's vision of how these programs should be ran, overview of ADA as a law and the wellness programs, EEOC final rule on the wellness programs itself, some of the implications from an employer's perspective and from an employee perspective, and we'll give you some recommendations as managers so that you can lead your organizations in the right direction, and we will conclude. EOC wants to ensure that wellness programs at workplaces are not discriminatory against any employee. They also want to ensure that employers' wellness programs comply with ADA regulations, especially for employees with disability, so that they can be able to participate in those programs freely. Employers' wellness programs must also be accessible, it must be voluntary, and it must protect all employees' rights. ADA is a civil right law that was established in 1990 that prohibits discrimination against individuals with disability at workplace and in public places. Title I of the law provides employment protection and reasonable accommodations for individuals with disability. And wellness programs are sponsored by employers to promote healthy lifestyle in the workplace with the hopes that these programs reduce healthcare costs, it improve their employees' overall health conditions, and also increase productivity on the job site as well. On May 17, 2016, the EEOC issued a final rule to amend the ADA as they relate to employer wellness programs. During the amendment, they came up with a final rule, and the EOC final rule on employer wellness programs under Title I of the ADA makes it mandatory for employers to provide reasonable accommodations to employees with disability. Employees must also put a cap on any type of financial incentive offered to employees who participate in the programs that require a medical condition or have some form of disability. The rule is applicable to employers with wellness programs that include disability-related inquiries or medical examinations. Some of the key provisions within the law, it has to be voluntary. So a participation in the program must be voluntary. Employers cannot make it mandatory or retaliate against employees who chose not to participate in the program. Employers also must provide reasonable accommodation so that it's easier for employees with disability to be able to access these programs and participate in them freely. Privacy is a big deal. Employers' collection, use, and disclosure of their employees' medical history must be limited specifically for that program. It cannot be used in any other way outside of those programs, which could potentially expose the organization to litigations. Incentives must be limited so that it doesn't give the perception or coerce employees to participate in the program. So whether it's a financial incentive or in-kind incentive, these incentives have to be capped according to the law so that employers or employees can participate in the program freely without being coerced into participating in them. This particular rule is enforced by the EEOC, which is responsible for enforcing federal laws that prohibit employment discrimination, including ADA and rules on employer wellness programs. There are some penalties if employers violate these programs, and they can face civil penalties up to $75,000 for the first occurrence. Any occurrence after that is $150,000. Employers can also be exposed to litigation from employees who allege that they've been discriminated against within the framework of these provisions. Some of the implications that we will have to take into considerations as managers, as within our organization, is some compliance issues. We have to make sure that the program does not expose your organization to any type of future litigations, that it has to be implemented properly. You have to take into consideration the medical records of your employees that participate in this program. It has to be safeguarded. It cannot be mismanaged so that you can avoid any type of or run into any type of compliance issues. There are also some operations and logistics issues that we have to pay attention to as managers. These accommodations, which are the reasonable accommodations, can sometimes be costly. If the organization is not ready to implement these type of programs, you have to make sure that you put strategies in place to be able to manage some of the reasonable accommodations that go into it. So, for instance, if you want to build a gym within the facility, you have to make sure that the gym is ADA compliant and accessible to your employees that have any level of disability. You also have to make sure you deploy best practices within your program so that employees cannot feel enticed by incentive, and the incentive have to be balanced so that it doesn't give the perception that they've been coerced into participating into the program, which is a complete violation of the new rule. The program has to be designed in alignment with EEOC's guidance and include regular reviews for improvement as you go along. Some of the implications from our employees' perspective, especially of our employees with disability, we have to make sure they're protected without any type of discriminatory or enticement. So we have to ensure that the program is inclusive for them. We have to ensure that it's accessible. We also have to ensure that any fear that their medical records or their medical history is going to be exposed, we have to make them feel comfortable. So putting policies and procedures in place to ensure that your employees feel safe, feel that their information is going to be safeguarded so they can freely participate in the program. Not only will increase participation rate in the program at their own accord, but it will also protect the organization from any potential litigation or fines that could come in the future. Recommendations to you managers as you lead your organizations, as you oversee these programs or design them, implement them, you have to make sure that they're inclusive. You have to make sure that they're accessible. You have to make sure that everybody have access to it, including your employees with disability. You also have to take into consideration other alternative options. So, like we briefly discussed about some of the logistical issues, if the organization does not have the resources at that time to implement this program internally, but they want to, uh, possibly looking at outsourcing, there could be a recommendation to ensure that that you partnering up with organizations that already have the capabilities to be able to accommodate some of these constraints, especially as it relates to making it accessible for your employees with disability. Create a clear communication plan so that employees can know that the program is voluntary. You're not encouraging them with any type of incentive for them to participate in this program. So communication has to align with the goals and objectives of the program itself and all of the EEOC guidelines that comes with it. Put policies in place to protect employee medical records from being exposed or being used for the wrong reason. And as all of the programs, make sure that there are trainings periodically, make sure that you're monitoring them, make sure you're checking with EEOC to ensure that there's no changes and you're all in compliance with all of the rules that have been put in place by these regulatory agencies to avoid any future issues. As a way of conclusion, the final EEOC rule for employers wellness program and ADA promotes health without discrimination against disabled individuals. Employers must ensure the program is inclusive and voluntary to avoid legal troubles. If employers adopt the best practices as shared with you in these slides, the program will benefit everyone and it will be more inclusive and participation within the program will increase. These are some of the resources that we've gathered. So if you have time to take a look at them, make sure And we want to thank you so much for taking time and listening to our presentation today. Thank you.